The first time I saw her, I thought she was just passing through. A thin, trembling deer stood at the edge of my porch, her ribs pressing through her coat like shadows. She didn't move when I opened the door, just stared, her dark eyes locked on mine, too tired to be afraid. That morning, I had a cup of coffee in one hand and my phone in the other. I filmed her without really knowing why. She looked half-starved, her breath visible in the cold air. I tossed her a few apple slices left from breakfast, expecting her to bolt. Instead, she stepped closer, careful but desperate, and began to eat. The next day, she came back. Same time, same place. I left out a few carrots, then some cracked corn. Each morning she'd appear out of the trees, wait a few steps away until I placed the food down, then approach. After a week, she didn't wait anymore. She'd walk right up to the porch, lift her head toward the kitchen window, as if checking if I was awake. Brooke wasn't thrilled. She leaned against the doorframe one morning, arms crossed, watching the deer chew. "You know you're turning our porch into a free diner for the whole forest, right?" she said. "You're gonna have raccoons, foxes, and who knows what else here next." I shrugged. "She's hungry. Look at her. She's wild, Jason. That's not your job." Maybe she was right. But when the deer lifted her head and looked at me, really looked, I couldn't turn away. There was something behind those eyes, a kind of silent pleading I hadn't seen before. Mr. Miller, our neighbor from down the hill, stopped by later that week. He was carrying his usual mug of black coffee and that permanent frown of his. "You're feeding deer now?" he said, nodding toward the half-eaten apples in the grass. "You'll regret that. They stop fearing people. Then one gets hit on the road, or a coyote gets brave. Don't mix your world with theirs." I told him it was just one deer, just temporary. He shook his head and muttered something about fools with soft hearts. Days passed. The deer kept returning. She was gaining a bit of strength, her fur starting to smooth out. But there was something different now, something uneasy. She'd finish eating, then freeze, ears twitching toward the woods. Sometimes she'd back away, stare into the trees like she heard something I couldn't. I thought maybe coyotes were nearby, or hunters. One morning, I noticed she didn't eat at all. She sniffed the apples, pawed the ground, and then looked at me. Not the way she used to. This time it felt urgent. She took a few steps back, then stopped, turning her head as if waiting for me to follow. I stood there on the porch, mug in hand, the steam curling up into the cold morning air. She did it again, 2 steps back, pause, a glance at me. Then she walked toward the trees, slow but deliberate. I felt something twist in my chest. It wasn't random. She wanted me to come. For a moment, I hesitated. Brooke's voice echoed in my head, "Don't get involved." Mr. Miller's too. But the forest was quiet, still, and she kept looking back. I set down my coffee, took a breath, and stepped off the porch. I hesitated at the bottom step, the cold boards damp under my socks. The deer stood about 10 yards away, halfway between the porch and the tree line, her body angled toward the woods, but her head turned back to me. Brooke called from the kitchen behind the screen door. "Jason, what are you doing?" "Just going to see where she goes," I said. "I'll stay close." "You'd better," she answered, the worry clear in her voice. "And take your phone this time." I patted my pocket to make sure it was there, then stepped off the last board and onto the frosted grass. The air bit at my ankles, and the quiet was so complete that I could hear the soft crunch of each step. The deer flicked her ears, then moved farther, slow and deliberate. Our yard faded out after a few patchy shrubs and a leaning fence post. Beyond that was county land, a strip of woods that slid down toward a shallow creek. I had walked a little way in before, just enough to feel like I was in the trees, but never far. Today the world felt different. The fog hung low, washing the color out of everything, turning the distance into a pale wall. She led, I followed. Whenever I slowed, she stopped too and glanced back over her shoulder like she was checking my position. Not tame, not friendly, just intent. The first stretch was familiar. The worn track where kids cut through toward the creek in summer. A couple of beer cans half buried in mud. A fallen branch I knew to step over. Past that, the ground sloped down. Wet leaves stuck to my socks, and thin branches slapped my legs. "You're crazy," I muttered to myself. Following a wild deer into the woods before breakfast. I could still see the top corner of our porch roof if I turned around and squinted through the mist. That small slice of white siding felt like a lifeline. But every time I glanced back at the house, the deer moved a little farther, like we were on a string she refused to let slack. The deeper we went, the more the sounds changed. The faint hum of the highway disappeared. I heard water somewhere ahead, the slow trickle of the creek over stones, the drip of condensation from branches. A crow called once and then went silent. The deer kept a steady distance, maybe 15 yards ahead. She did not rush, but she did not wander either. Her hooves found the firmest ground with the kind of instinct I did not have. Twice, I stepped into hidden holes and staggered forward, catching myself on tree trunks. I started noticing things I had never paid attention to before. Hoofprints, pressed deep where the ground had been soft and then frozen. Not one set, but many. This was not her first trip. Small clumps of fur caught on thorns. A pale brown tuft snagged on the bottom of an old fence post half hidden under vine. There was a fence down here I barely remembered, the rusted remains of an old property line. Most of its wires sagged or lay flat under the leaves, but some of it still stood, bent and twisted, exactly at the height of a deer's legs or neck. I slowed near one section, running my fingers over the cold, rough wire. On one strand, I saw something darker smeared along the twist. I leaned in and squinted. Dried blood, a thin line of it, just enough to stain the metal. My stomach tightened. She knows this fence, I thought. Maybe too well. The deer stopped just beyond the broken section, standing among a clutch of skinny maples. She waited while I picked my way over the half-buried wire, lifting my knees high so I would not trip. For a moment, doubt rushed in. If I got hurt out here, if I slipped or twisted an ankle, Brooke would have every right to say I told you so for the next 10 years. Mr. Miller would probably stand on his porch and shake his head like he had predicted this too. I checked my phone quickly. 1 bar of signal, maybe 2 if I lifted it high. Enough for a call, maybe. Enough to make me feel a little less alone. All right, girl, I said quietly, my breath puffing white. Where are you taking me? She moved again, weaving deeper between the trees. The ground leveled out near the creek, then rose in a gentle ridge on the other side. A thin layer of mist clung to the water's surface, carrying a faint chill that seeped through my clothes. Once, she left the path so abruptly I lost sight of her. My heart lurched. I turned in a quick circle, branches scraping my shoulders, trying to catch any movement. For a few seconds there was nothing but gray and brown and the sound of my own breathing. Then I saw her. She had doubled back a little, standing off to my right, perfectly still. When our eyes met, she flicked her ears and stepped sideways, as if correcting my course. You're doing this on purpose, I whispered. You really are. The farther we went, the quieter the forest became. The snowless ground and wet leaves swallowed our footsteps. No birds called now. Even the creek sounded distant, muffled. We moved into a narrow hollow where the trees grew closer together, their trunks forming a kind of tunnel. Light filtered through in pale strips, turning the air into layers of silver and blue. Here, the deer slowed. She stopped near a thick tangle of brush and fallen limbs, right where the hollow narrowed. Her whole body went tense. She glanced at me once more, then fixed her gaze on a point just ahead, beyond the pile of branches. I followed her stare, but saw nothing at first. Just shadows, leaves, old wood. Then I heard it. It was so faint I thought at first it was the wind in the branches. A thin, broken sound, somewhere between a whine and a gasp. It came in short bursts, then faded, then came again. Not human. Not the deer in front of me. Something small, I thought. Something struggling. The hair on my arms lifted. The deer flicked her ears and stamped once, as if urging me forward. I stepped closer to the brush, my pulse hammering in my throat, and listened to that fragile, desperate noise that sounded disturbingly like a child trying not to cry. The sound grew clearer the closer I crept. I pushed through the tangle of branches, careful not to snap them, and caught sight of movement beneath a half-fallen tree. At first, I thought it was a bundle of leaves. Then it shifted, and a small head lifted weakly from the ground. It was a fawn, tiny, barely able to stand. Its coat was dull and matted, speckled with dirt, its sides heaving with shallow, frantic breaths. One leg was twisted beneath it, caught between strands of old wire half buried under the fallen log. I felt my stomach drop. The deer, the mother, stood a few yards away, motionless. Her chest rose and fell, her nostrils flared. She didn't make a sound, just stared at me, frozen between trust and terror. Hey, it's okay, I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was trying to calm. My heart hammered so hard it almost hurt. The fawn twitched when I moved closer, trying to pull free, but the wire dug deeper, tightening around its leg. Easy, I murmured. Just stay still. I crouched, the damp earth soaking through my jeans. My fingers brushed the wire. It was cold and rusty, the kind of old fencing you see in abandoned fields. One wrong move could tear the skin worse. I had nothing sharp on me, no pliers, not even a knife. The fawn let out a thin cry, short and breathy, and the sound sliced through me. The mother stamped her hoof once, then froze again, torn between running and staying. She knew. She had led me here because she couldn't do anything herself. All right, I said softly. Let's get you out. I used both hands to bend the wire apart, but it barely moved. The metal was stiff, the edges biting into my palms. I braced my knee against the log and pulled again. A creak, a snap, a small shift, then nothing. My breath clouded the air in quick bursts. Hold on, hold on. I pressed my weight down and pried harder until the rusted twist gave a little. Enough to loosen the loop around the fawn's leg. The animal kicked weakly, whimpering. I flinched but didn't stop. Finally, I managed to lift the wire enough for its leg to slip free. The fawn tried to stand immediately and collapsed with a soft thud. I reached toward it but stopped midway. Its leg was swollen and scraped raw, but not bleeding heavily. Maybe not broken, but maybe close. The mother stepped closer now, no more than 20 feet away. Her body trembled. Every instinct in her screamed to run, yet she stayed. I could hear her breathing from where I knelt. Okay, little one, I said quietly. We need help. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking. One bar of signal. I scrolled through my contacts, trying to remember the name of the small wildlife center outside town. Dr. Carter, Wildlife Rescue. I hit call. It rang twice before connecting. A calm voice answered. Wildlife Center, this is Dr. Carter. Hi, my name's Jason. There's a deer, a fawn, it's hurt. Caught in wire near my property. Is the mother nearby? She asked immediately. Yeah, she's watching me right now. She's not attacking or anything. Just waiting. Okay, don't try to move the fawn anymore. Stay quiet, stay low. Can you describe the injury? I looked again. The leg was trembling, the joint red and swollen. Its tangled marks, maybe sprained, maybe worse. I freed it, but it can't stand. Good. You did the right thing freeing it carefully. Don't force it to move. We'll send someone out as soon as we can. How far into the woods are you? I glanced around. Nothing but trees and fog. Maybe half a mile past the creek, near an old fence line, I said. But I'm not sure the path's easy to find. Stay put, Jason. Keep your distance from the fawn if the mother gets nervous. They'll calm if you stay quiet. All right. Thank you. The call crackled. I heard her say something else, but the signal dropped to silence. I looked at my screen, no bars. The battery indicator blinked red at 8%. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered. I tried redialing, but it wouldn't go through. Only static. The woods felt heavier now. The quiet pressed down. The fawn's breathing came in uneven bursts, its body trembling with effort. I glanced at the mother. She hadn't moved an inch. Her eyes locked on mine again, deep and dark and pleading. I sat back slowly, the cold seeping into my bones. There was nothing else to do but wait. I checked my phone once more, still no signal. 7% battery. I looked at the sky through the canopy. The light was shifting, the morning turning pale gold. It would take time before anyone could reach me here. Maybe too much time. It's all right, I whispered again. Just hold on. The deer flicked her ears toward the sound, and for a brief moment, it felt like she understood. Time lost its shape while I waited. The hollow seemed to hold its breath with me. The fawn lay on its side, eyes half open, chest fluttering. The doe stood guard a short distance away, muscles tight, ears swiveling at every sound. I checked my phone again. No signal. 6% battery. Not enough to waste on trying. I slid it back into my pocket and forced myself to stay still. Minutes stretched. I listened to the creak, the small shifts of leaves, the occasional snap of a twig. Twice, the fawn tried to push itself up, its front legs trembling, back leg dangling uselessly. Each time it collapsed, letting out that thin, broken cry. The doe paced in a small arc, then stopped, as if invisible lines kept her from coming closer. Hang in there, I whispered. Someone's coming. I had no proof of that, just the memory of Dr. Carter's calm voice before the call had died. Still, I clung to it. At some point, I heard something new, a dull mechanical hum, distant but growing. I straightened, straining to listen. It came in waves, then steadied. An engine, moving slowly over rough ground. The doe's head shot up. She stared in the direction of the sound, body quivering. For a second, I worried she would bolt and vanish into the trees. Instead, she stayed, torn between two fears. "Over here," I shouted, my voice cracking in the stillness. The engine cut. For a moment, there was nothing. Then faint voices floated through the trees. "Jason?" A woman's voice called. "Jason, can you hear us?" "Here." I yelled again. By the creek, near the old fence line. Branches crashed as someone pushed through the undergrowth. A figure in a dark green jacket appeared first, then another behind. The first one was a woman in her 40s with a calm, weathered face. A patch on her jacket read Carter Wildlife Rescue. "You picked quite a spot," she said, a little breathless but steady. "I'm Dr. Carter." I nodded and stepped aside so she could see the fawn. Her expression tightened the moment she did. "All right," she said quietly to the team behind her. "Let's move slow." A younger man carrying a bright orange pack set it down near the log. Another woman followed, holding a folded blanket and a soft-sided carrier. They kept their voices low, their movements measured. The doe snorted and took a half-step forward. Her hooves tore at the damp soil. The fur along her back rippled. "Easy, girl," Dr. Carter murmured, not looking away from the fawn. "We're here to help." She knelt beside the small body, her gloved hands gentle but efficient. She checked the fawn's breathing, its eyes, the angle of the injured leg. "Sprain at best, fracture at worst," she said under her breath. "Dehydrated. Exhausted. Can you fix it here?" I asked, hearing the strain in my own voice. "No," she said. "Not properly. We can stabilize the leg enough to move, but if we leave it like this out here, it won't make it. It needs fluids, maybe splinting, observation." The words felt like a weight dropping into my chest. "Which means taking it away," I finished. She met my eyes. "For a while, yes. We'll keep it as wild as we can. Limited handling, no unnecessary interaction. But if we don't intervene, nature will not be kind to this one." The doe took another step, closer than before. One of the techs shifted nervously. "She going to charge?" he whispered. "Not if we don't push it," Dr. Carter replied. "Jason, I need you to stay calm. If she focuses on you, she might hold her ground." I swallowed hard and slowly moved between the doe and the rescuers, keeping a few yards of space on both sides. I did not raise my hands or make sudden moves. I just stood there, heart pounding. "Hey, girl," I said gently. "You brought me here, remember? Let us finish." She fixed her gaze on me. Her ears flicked, her breathing rough and fast. For an instant, I thought she might lunge. Instead, she stamped once and froze again. All that panic held just under the surface. Behind me, I heard the soft rip of tape, the clink of metal. Dr. Carter and her team worked quickly, wrapping the leg in a temporary support, slipping a small tube under the fawn's skin to start fluids. "Okay, on 3, Dr. Carter said. "Lift gently." They scooped the fawn up in the blanket, its head lolling weakly. The little chest still moved, but so shallow I had to look twice to see it. They settled it into the carrier, leaving the zipper partly open so air could flow. The doe exploded forward a few yards, stopping so abruptly clods of dirt flew. She snorted, a harsh sound that echoed in the hollow. My whole body tensed. "Easy," Dr. Carter said again, her voice softer now. "We're not taking it forever." I did not know if that was true, but I didn't argue. "We're heading back to the truck," she told me. "You can follow us out. We'll talk more on the way." I walked beside her as they moved, the carrier cradled carefully between the two techs. Behind us, I heard the quick, uneven steps of the doe following. "She's coming," I said, glancing back. "She will," Dr. Carter replied quietly. "She'll follow until the edge of what she knows. Then she'll stop." The trip back felt longer. The hollow, the fence, the misty stretch near the creek, everything passed in a blur. The doe stayed just far enough back that I could not ignore her, close enough that I could feel her eyes on the little moving box. When we broke out of the trees near my yard, Brooke was waiting on the porch, face pale, arms wrapped around herself. Beside her stood Mr. Miller, hat pulled low, lips pressed into a thin line. Brooke rushed forward as soon as she saw me. "Are you okay?" You were gone so long. I'm fine, I said, though I didn't quite believe it. We found a fawn. It's bad. Mr. Miller's eyes narrowed. So they're taking it away now, huh? Dr. Carter gave him a brief nod. We're transporting it for treatment. It has a good chance if we act fast. And the mother? He asked, jerking his chin toward the tree line. We all turned. The doe had stopped at the edge of the woods, half hidden in shadow. She stood there, rigid, watching as the carrier was loaded into the back of the truck. She'll stay here, Dr. Carter said quietly. She may search for a while. But if the fawn survives, we'll do everything we can to bring it back to this area. Mr. Miller snorted. That's what you all say? Meanwhile, you've got this poor fool. He nodded toward me, playing hero while you drag babies away from their mothers. I felt heat rise in my face. If we left it there, it would die, I said. You didn't see the leg. Nature has its way, he snapped. You start messing with it, you break more than you fix. Brooke stepped in, her voice low but firm. That baby was trapped in our fence line, she said. That's not nature. That's our junk. Mr. Miller muttered something under his breath and turned away, heading back down the hill. Dr. Carter touched my shoulder lightly. You did the right thing calling, Jason. Not everyone would. Can I come see it? I asked. At the center. She nodded. Give us a couple of hours to stabilize it. Then you can swing by. The truck engine rumbled to life. As it rolled down the dirt lane, the doe trotted after it, hooves clattering softly on the frozen ground. She followed nearly to the bend where the road curved out of sight, then stopped. She stood there, watching the dust settle behind the truck long after it was gone. That image stayed burned into my mind as I drove to the wildlife center later that afternoon. The building was small, low, set back from the road behind a chain-link fence. Inside, everything smelled faintly of disinfectant and straw. Dr. Carter met me in the hallway. She led me to a quiet room where a series of pens lined the wall. In one, the fawn lay curled on a bed of clean hay, leg wrapped in a more solid splint, a thin tube still taped along its neck. You can look, but don't go in, she said. We keep contact minimal. I stood just outside the gate, hands gripping the cool metal. The fawn's eyes were half closed, but it was breathing more steadily than in the woods. How bad is it? I asked. The leg's damaged, but not shattered, she said. The bigger problem is shock and dehydration. The first night is always the hardest. If it makes it through, the odds go up. And if it doesn't? I asked, though I already knew. Then at least it didn't die alone in a fence, she said quietly. There wasn't much to say after that. I stayed a few more minutes, watching the slow rise and fall of the little chest, then drove home in the fading light. That evening, the house felt different. Brooke made dinner but barely touched it. We talked in low voices at the table. Do you think you went too far? She asked finally. Going that deep into the woods, getting this involved? Maybe, I said. But once I saw it, I couldn't walk away. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I get it. I'm just scared for you. And for what happens if this doesn't end well. My phone buzzed on the counter, making us both jump. I grabbed it, heart racing. The screen showed a text from an unknown number. This is Dr. Carter. The fawn is unstable. Next few hours will decide, the message read. My battery hovered at 5%. I stared at the words, the room suddenly too quiet. So we wait, I said, more to myself than to Brooke, and hope it lives long enough to have a chance to go home. The next morning after Dr. Carter's message, I barely slept. I sat by the phone until dawn, every sound in the house making me flinch. Brooke dozed on the couch, her hand still resting on my arm. Around 6, a text finally came. The fawn made it through the night. Weak, but stable. I read it 3 times before it sank in. Then I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Over the next few days, I visited the center when they allowed it. I didn't touch the fawn, no one did, but I stood by the gate and watched it slowly regain strength. Its eyes were clearer now, its breathing steadier. The bandages changed from bulky splints to softer wraps. Dr. Carter always moved quietly, speaking in low tones that seemed to calm everyone around her. You've got a survivor on your hands, she told me one afternoon. Stronger than I expected. I smiled. Does that mean it can go home soon? Not yet. We take our time. The goal is for it to forget us as soon as possible. She caught my confused look and added, that's the point of rehab, Jason. We help them heal, not get used to people. If they trust us too much, they'll never make it out there. That line stayed with me long after I left. I thought about how I had fed the mother, how she had stopped fearing me enough to come to the porch. Maybe that trust was a mistake, but maybe it was also what saved her child. 2.5 weeks later, I got another call from Dr. Carter. Her voice carried a hint of satisfaction. "We think it's time. The fawn's walking on all fours, eating well. It's ready to go back where you found it." "When?" "Tomorrow morning. We'll release it at sunrise, same area. You're welcome to come." I was there before them. The air was cool, the grass still silver with dew. Mist clung to the trees, just like the morning I first followed the doe. Every sound seemed sharper, the drip of water from branches, the rustle of wings above. Then I heard the familiar engine hum, and the wildlife truck pulled up behind me. Dr. Carter climbed out first, followed by the same two techs. They lifted the carrier from the truck bed carefully. Inside, the fawn shifted, head lifting to peer through the mesh. It looked taller now, its coat cleaner and richer in color. "We'll open it near the same hollow," Dr. Carter said. "If the mother's still in the area, she'll find it. They have ways of knowing." We walked down the narrow trail, sunlight breaking through the fog in strips. I recognized every step, the log where I had first seen it, the spot where the wire fence had been cut and cleared. The hollow felt smaller now, quieter, as if waiting. They set the carrier down and unzipped it partway. The fawn hesitated, nose twitching, ears flicking. Then, slowly, it stepped out. Its legs trembled, but it stayed upright. It turned one way, then the other, scenting the air. We backed away, giving it space. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, from the line of trees across the clearing, a shadow shifted. I froze. A doe stepped out, her coat glistening with dew. Her head lifted, nostrils flaring. She took one cautious step forward, then another. The fawn's ears perked. It let out a soft, high sound, a call, faint but unmistakable. The doe answered with a low grunt and moved closer, faster now. The fawn limped toward her, the two meeting in the middle of the clearing. She sniffed its face, its injured leg, circling it once before brushing her head against its neck. For a second, the whole forest seemed to exhale. Dr. Carter touched my arm lightly. "That's what we hope for," she whispered. The doe turned then, nudging the fawn gently toward the woods. Together, they moved between the trees, the smaller one staying close, almost under her belly. I watched until their shapes blended into the mist. We stayed there a while after they disappeared. No one spoke. The silence didn't feel empty this time. It felt earned. On the drive home, I replayed it all in my head. The porch, the fence, the night of waiting. Brooke was standing in the yard when I pulled in. She could tell by my face how it ended. "They're together again," I said. She smiled, a little sadly. "Then it was worth it." A week later, I saw them again. It was early, the kind of gray morning that blurs the world. I was pouring coffee when movement caught my eye outside the window. Two shapes stood near the edge of the trees, the doe and the young one. The fawn looked stronger now, steady on its legs. They stood there for several seconds, watching the house. The doe's ears twitched once, as if in recognition. Then, without sound, they turned and slipped back into the forest. I stayed at the window long after they were gone. It wasn't gratitude I felt, just something quieter, deeper. A reminder that sometimes trust isn't about taming what's wild. It's about answering when it calls for help and knowing when to let it go again.